Dead. You know how it happened?
Not sure.
Oh, come on, man, come on.
It's incredible, really.
Well,
all the symptoms are consistent with death by...
Pull to open.
Pull to open?
Yes, and what do you do?
Some new development in the treatment of criminals, I believe.
may I be permitted to continue?
Oh, yes. Yes, please do.
Thank you.
Here! Come!
Hello and welcome to Pull to Open, an ongoing quest to watch all of Doctor Who, the entire television show, all the canon that you've seen on that screen in random order. I'm Pete Pachal.
And I'm Chris Taylor, and we're a couple of Doctor Who loving journalists who occasionally write about the show, very often watch it, love to talk about it, and love to visit all of the episodes in random order. Pete, where on Earth and in the stars have we been?
Previously on Pull to Open, 3 episodes ago, we were at a very special episode of Doctor Who, a Christmas special, in fact. It was the 2011 Christmas special starring Matt Smith. Got some Narnia vibes going on there, and the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe.
Not enough Narnia vibes,
yeah. Some superficial Narnia vibes, I would say.
Could have got more. Yes.
And then things got a little dark. We still stayed with the specials, but it was a 2009 autumn special in
Nice.
the waters of Mars. This was the penultimate adventure for David Tennant, the 10th Doctor. And that was a great time. We also had some guests on that podcast. We had Rob and Liam from the Cloisterbell podcast, who helped us with a lot of insights. We're still debating whether Gadget is a companion, to be determined in a future episode. But we have a system. We have this working system that you'll hear about soon enough. But from that, we were then rocketed back into the future, the 24th century, with a space ark about to not land, it was going to crash on Earth, but it was full of dinosaurs, though. What's going on? We needed a ton of random characters to help deal with that, and they dealt with it in Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, and that has brought us to today's episode. We have gone back to the Pertwee era, everybody. Back to the 70s, the 60s, the 80s. Who knows
70s.
when it was?
70s. Definitely the 70s.
I think this one reeks of the 70s. So if
really
we're looking
does.
at the unit dating controversy,
There's no controversy.
this one
It's the
locked it
70s.
in a little bit.
Yep.
It's, of course, Season 8, Serial 2, The Mind of Evil.
Wow, yes. And if you, like me, could not remember whether the Mind of Evil was Pertwee or Troughton, because it seems of a piece with many of the titles of that era. And in fact, I was heartened to learn that the writer of The Mind of Evil did not like the title The Mind of Evil. But yes, that is what we call it. But it is Pertwee. It's from Pertwee's second season. It's the second story with the Master and Joe, and it is the randomizer filling in a whole rock block of Doctor Who stories from Inferno to then we did Terror of the Autons. We've done this, and then we have done. Have we done the next one after this?
Yeah, we've done the Claws of Access.
The Claws of that was
one.
It. Yes, I got
this
big.
will be our most solid continuous block of Doctor Who adventures that we've done in the Pull to Open Codex, which of course is our complete listing of every televised adventure. Check the show notes. And we've done, this will be a 4 in a row that we've covered at various times in random
Which
order.
is the most that the randomizer does. So you got to say the randomizer loves Pertwee perhaps more than any other Doctor. It really wants to fill in all the Pertwee gaps.
I'm just feeling sad because I think it unless it's getting like doing these things where it comes back to the same era again and again, I don't think we're going to get the Ambassadors of Death or the Silurians anytime soon. But who knows? It's random.
Who knows? It could happen now. The randomizer does seem to fall in love with certain Doctors in certain periods. And right now it seems to have fallen out of love with the 4th Doctor, which is
I know.
bizarre.
It's been a while.
It's like we used to say that Matt Smith and Tom Baker were kind of missing from our adventures here a lot. Well, we certainly sorted out the Smith lack, and now, that's going to be my spoiler alert on what I'm going to ask the randomizer for next time. Give us more Tom Baker. But yeah, Pertwee it is. I'd never seen this one. I was glad of the opportunity to see it. Definitely got some Pigbin Josh vibes here. That's how I knew we were on the edge of clause of access. And it's interesting, but we have a bingo. I'll tease the bingo.
Really? Is it me saying, speaking of things you love and speaking of our love for the fans, and this is the part of the show where we talk about our own fans, and it's, of course, we're entering the pull to open feedback loop. Hey, check off your pull to open bingo card for the cheesy segue. And what was the thing you were going to tell them? Because it's,
I was going to say
it's in the show notes.
The bingo card's the show notes, but I'm thinking of the bingo of as we go through our random adventures, collecting everything. We've now collected all Pertwee Cybermen. We thought we'd done it.
Ooh, right.
We thought we'd done it with Carnival and Monsters, but no, it turns out there's a very brief Cyberman in the Mind of Evil. It's not an original to the Pertwee era Cyberman, but yeah. I would have thought you would have noticed that.
I did notice it. I guess I didn't count it because it's
the invasion.
Like it flashes by. It's literally like a split second, and it's kind of there. And is it? I can't even remember which one it is. Is it a moon-based Cyberman or is it a
from
the Cyberman?
Invasion Cyberman? So
okay, so that makes
appropriate enough for a unit-heavy story. But anyway, we are in the feedback loop, and we do love you to play the bingo card, and we also love it when you leave reviews, and we especially love it when not only along your 5-star review, or whatever star formation you prefer, you leave us a Doctor Who title in the form of an emoji.
Yeah, guys, we love reviews. We love emoji title reviews, and we love them more than the Keller machine likes evil impulses, guys. We really just like feed off these things. And if you leave a review, whether it has an emoji title or not, we'd love to read it out on the show. And I would do that right now with someone who did this with just an emoji title. So that's what you can do. You could literally just leave an emoji title. And this comes from Bananakin Skywalker of Ireland, who left us this great review. And it just says, here's an emoji title. And there is a doctor emoji and an arrow going down. I think we might know what this is, but I'm going to...
Too easy.
I'm going to throw this one to Chris, because I think I figured it out.
Too easy. The doctor falls.
Bam! Bam! There it is. You did not fall on that one, Chris. You rose to the occasion to get that emoji title.
Indeed, yeah.
Keep it coming, Bananakin Skywalker.
Yeah, it's okay.
Right.
If you don't stump me on your first one, that's great. And also means that you will occupy that spot in the codex for World Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls. I guess someone could still do World Enough in Time. Maybe a number of Earths plus a clock. Would be
not bad.
World
Is that enough though? Is that enough world? How do you know? How do you signify enough? Maybe a glass that's full. But
we do know from James Bond that the world is not enough, so maybe 2 worlds are enough.
You know, it's funny. We just did Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, and I think that's another one that's easy to do. And I even put it in one of our tweets. If you go check our Twitter, hold open 63, by the way. You just do. There's actually 2 dinosaur emojis, so you can have plural dinosaurs with 2 different emojis, and then
love it.
Rocket ship. Boom.
Yes,
there it is. 2
dinosaurs on a spaceship. Love it, and maybe throw in a couple of robots.
This goes right to the Codex. And watch for it there. And your review, if you leave us an emoji review, will be permanently recorded in our Pull to Open Codex. So even better, and you get credit. We have credits for those. So good times. Awesome. Way to go, Bananakin Skywalker.
And speaking of ways to interact with us, you can also, if you're a Spotify listener like me, you can not just rate the show on the app. You can also, like we do, give a rating to every story we visit. You may know our rating system: Dalek for a good episode, Ogron for a bad episode, Professor Eta for a bad episode that we felt that we learned something, like Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, or the Viscount Banger if it's the best of the best. And we have, the results are in from the waters of Mars, and over to Pete at the decision desk.
So, what we've got from the final count on the poll for what the Waters of Mars ranks, 94% of the people rated on Spotify call this one a Viscount banger.
Wow.
The best of the best.
So this
6% said it was a Dalek. 0% thought this was a bad episode, either Professor Hater or Ogron.
So basically, Pete, 94% of people agreed with you and Rob and Liam, and I've only got 6% of people. I don't want to be an election denier here, but like 94%, that's the kind of numbers you get in a autocratically controlled election, right? This is I don't know what's going on here. Did you vote multiple times?
Get with the program. You just got to get with the program.
Well,
no, I don't think I even voted in this one. I think I was like mostly listening on Apple. I was like, let the people have their say.
Yes,
okay. That was my thing. So that's 6%. That's you and, like a couple people on TikTok. I will say that because I'm going to use that as a segue to TikTok before I remind everybody to go to Spotify and rate this episode that we're about to do, The Mind of Evil, because we're doing these polls every week, and we'll ask you guys what your rating is. Occasionally, we might ask what you think our best explanation for the Clara Splinter is, or the evil plot succeeding. But on TikTok, The Waters of Mars, wow, I was not... I guess I was taken a little bit aback because we haven't had some viral hits in a little while, but holy cow, did a lot of people on TikTok remember and have good things to say about The Waters of Mars. Yeah. A couple of our posts went really viral there. And many people were recounting how this just freaked them out as a kid. Like the zombies, the horror stuff, the fast-paced action, all that stuff. But they were just like, the water zombies in particular were just super duper scary. And the Doctor going sort of dark at the end. I mean, it was great to hear from the TikTok crowd, which obviously skews a bit younger, just growing up with this episode and just being totally, totally behind the sofa, scared by it. So that was neat. A couple of comments really stood out, and these were on the video where we talk about Waters of Mars leaning into that horror adult storyline. And this one sort of gives us a good rundown and reminds us that this Waters of Mars was not the only episode in the Tennant era to sort of have this kind of atmosphere. So this is from Schmidt-Send. And Schmidt-Send says, the best episodes were the darkest ones. Midnight, Waters of Mars, Blink, Satan Hit / Impossible Planet, Listen, Turn Left, best episodes in the series. And it's like, it's like might be more than you remember, right? There were a lot of sort of scary, frightening, dark episodes, particularly in the Tennant era, which you wouldn't think his Doctor would have had as many. But if you think about Russell T Davies and this time, like obviously super fan of Doctor Who, grew up with the hide behind the sofa mentality, really brought that to bear during his original run. And I think we can look forward to seeing more of that now that he's back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes people think of RTD as like the Paul McCartney of showrunners. Paul McCartney also sort of unfairly maligned as not being a writer of dark songs, which is not entirely true. Right. But yeah, Turn Left, I would totally pick among one of the scariest episodes, and it's so RTD. Yeah, and Listen, it's nice to give a shout out from the Moffat era as well. Absolutely love that one. But yeah,
that's a great one.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's because Waters of Mars was so much a filler episode for RTD to get to the end of the season. It's interesting. It might now be better remembered than last the time than what followed it.
Yeah, for sure.
The end of time, rather. Yeah.
So we had one more comment I wanted to highlight on this, and it's from someone with the handle Agent Mothman. And that person says, I think how present and actually impactful death is in this episode is what makes it so scary. Which I tend to agree. I think this is one of the things, I don't think I used the word, but I think everything I said about this episode implied it, which is that it's just very visceral. And I think that's when you have basically a zombie horror, I think that's one of the best things that zombies sort of bring to bear. It's obviously less psychological and more like, oh my God, I could die at any moment. And from the dumbest, not dumbest, but like the slightest thing, this thing is so deadly. Yes. And you just see these characters, some of which you've barely gotten to know, some of which you really get to know, die from the water virus. But then you have that very even more moving death at the end, as the show sort of is creating this situation with the Time Lord victorious and Adelaide sort of shoots herself, and it really hurts you. Like it's such a gut punch at the end, which clearly Tennant feels, as his doctor feels too. It just, obviously works really well, and it's why I think so many people regard it as a Viscount banger. But like the way it just treats death in this episode just feels right, and really guts at you,
Yeah. I don't know why it didn't hit home for me in the same way, but I do appreciate hearing. I love it. We sort of had this thing with Midnight as well, right? That there are hidden depths here, and it's one of those that we may have to return to in the future. But anyway, speaking of returning, we should return to the feedback loop, and we're just talking about YouTube, which seems to be going well. We got a big push to get to 1,000 subscribers there.
Yeah, it's coming along. I wouldn't say we're almost there, but we're at 600 subs, and we're rising fast. If you subscribe to the podcast already on your podcast app, please go to youtube.com/pulseopen and subscribe there as well. It's really going to help the show. All of our episodes are there now. Every single one, every Pull to Open podcast that we have recorded is also now on YouTube. So you can binge listen or binge watch there as you like. We have all our short videos. So the ones that we primarily share on TikTok are all there now too. It's complete. We have it's not the codex. We'll find another word. The canon, the Pull to Open canon is now all on YouTube. So check it out.
It's complete.
We've got some great comments coming in there. We'll highlight comments there too, and you get to see us. What what more do you need, folks? Boom.
You get to see the random things in our backgrounds.
Exactly. You get to see all this good stuff, which will be clear soon. And so those neat little Capaldi looks Capaldi inspired gears.
I got some gears coming out of my head this week, and we go to YouTube and maybe just sort of have that in one corner of your window, and then you can have your HBO Max window and your BritBox window, and watch the shows along with us. Maybe have another window for TikTok, and watch, or just go to YouTube Shorts, watch our summaries. But speaking of summaries, we should probably dive right in, unless we want to talk about the Ncuti Gatwa costume. I want
to mention two things. So one is that we're recording this on the weekend of Gallifrey 1, and I know there's been a lot of chat. A lot of the other podcasts are talking about it, or even there. And there's not a lot of news, I think, that has come out of it. But Chris Chibnall apparently has been on like every single panel he could possibly get near. And I think it's great that he's super excited to share and talk. And, there's a lot of goodwill, obviously, at these conventions and stuff, which I think is awesome that he's getting out there and just proudly talking about his era of Doctor Who and all the good stuff. Because, again, we haven't been to Whittaker, I think. We went to Revolution of the Daleks, but
we did,
which we liked. And then we also like even his first season when we revisited sort of, when you take it out of the period, they're actually kind of maybe better than you remember. So and last week's episode, if you haven't listened to it, Dinosaur on a Spaceship, we actually end up talking about the Chibnall era quite a lot, because that was a Chibnall episode, and because it sort of reflected in interesting ways both the success and the shortfall of Chibnall's era of writing. So I look forward to maybe next week we will find out more about what he actually said at Gallifrey 1, if there's any news about that we can use to retroactively look at the Whittaker. That'd be interesting. No, I think there will be. I think a bunch of interviews are probably getting processed right now and will be pushed out during the week. So there's that. Look forward to that. Also, there was I tried to avoid spoilers and set shots on Twitter. Okay, I really do. But this was super unavoidable. If you were on Doctor Who Twitter at all, if you actually even ever looked at a tweet, I think, with the words Doctor Who in it, Twitter fed you this week the picture of Ncuti Gatwa on set, which shows him in a coat that is different from the coat that he was shown in the publicity shot, right? So I don't think this is a spoiler. I'm sorry if I should have said spoiler. It's a bit of a spoiler, I guess. don't go look at the coat if you don't want to be spoiled about what it looks like. But it does look like he's just got is he going to be switching coats? I mean, I don't know if this is a controversy or whatever, but it is like this. I think this photo is just, it's something that's going to be unavoidable going into the next season. So interesting. He's going to have a couple of looks. And this one looks a little more, I don't know how to describe it.
Festive. I love it. Festive. Okay. I'm not going to look, so I'm not going to ask you any more questions about it. But
so you haven't seen it? Have you not been on Twitter?
No, I have not. I've been on Twitter. I've somehow managed to avoid it, which is great.
Wow.
But I love the idea of a Doctor having a backup costume and about that being revealed early, because I was thinking in our recent Visit Smith episodes how much I love his long purple frock coat that he ended up with, and how much of his adventures are not in that outfit. And I wish that there was more of a switcheroo happening from the start. And it did kind of happen with Capaldi. Like Capaldi had his, he switched back and forth between his shirt and his hoodie. And I kind of like that he just right from the start, he was confident enough as a Doctor to appear in multiple Doctor guises. So yeah, why should the Doctor?
Kind of. I feel like that started to come a little later. Like he seemed a little prescribed at the get-go because they had the costume reveal and he had his boots and the magician sort of outfit, and they sort of even knowingly mentioned magician in the I think in the Caretaker. And then I think as the season went on, they were like, why are we being so prescriptive about this? Like the Doctor's a dude, he could switch it out. And then of course in his second season he was all over the map, and
he was Dr. Disco,
glasses and everything else.
Yeah, Dr. Disco season.
Do it from the get go. Whatever you feel right in there, Shooty. So good stuff. What you want. All right. Well, let's let this podcast wear what we want. What we want to wear right now. Keep smashing that bingo, guys.
Yeah, segue.
We want to wear right now is a little thing we like to call TLDW. Too long didn't watch, too long Doctor Who, where one of us will summarize the plot of the Doctor Who adventure that we're going to talk about in record time. And this one is The Mind of Evil, which is a 6-episode serial. So for the classic series, we allocate 30 seconds for every 25-minute episode. And that gives whoever's doing this a full 3 minutes to summarize the plot. And that someone is one Christopher Taylor. Chris.
Oh, and I hate to say it. I might need all 3 of those minutes because there's a lot going on here. I mean, there's World War III.
I think you might get lost on the way to the coastline to dispose of the missile, so you're going to have to go round and round.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm going to have to intercept my own convoy. All right, I'm ready. Got my tabs closed.
Tabs closed, no notes.
No notes. I'm ready to. I haven't even thought about this, but yeah, let's do it.
All right, here we go with the official pull to open summary of The Mind of Evil in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so the Doctor and Jo are going to a demonstration of a new thing in a prison, Stagmore prison, called the Keller Machine, and it's a way to take the evil impulses out of prisoners, and they see it happen to one prisoner, Barnum, but something goes wrong, and Barnum's like freaked out, and he passes out, and they have to take him to the sickbay, and the Doctor and Jo get involved, and the governor of the prison's like, no big deal here, no problem here, but then he apparently drowns in a dry room. And meanwhile, UNIT is hosting this, or providing security of this international peace conference. But what's going on? There's a Chinese captain who's claiming that the papers have been stolen, and then there's all sorts of shenanigans with she lures a U.S. senator to a room and then turns into a dragon, and basically all of it comes back to the master in his second outing. He's trying to disrupt the peace conference, and he's also trying to start World War III. And meanwhile, at Stagmore Prison, there's actually an inmate riot that takes over the prison. And and the Doctor and Joe are stuck in there at that point. Are they stuck in there later? I can't even remember. I'm going to say yes. They're stuck in there for a long time, and it's basically oh no, the other Doctor and Joe are stuck in Stavemore Prison for a bunch of episodes, and oh god, and it gets just super. Oh yeah, the Doctor is involved in like trying to talk to the Chinese delegates and trying to figure that stuff out, and basically the Master goes to the prison and he tells the prisoners, look, if you help me, I can get you out of this, because I need you to help me steal this missile. It's got nerve gas and it's also a nuclear missile, and UNIT is going to dump this in the sea, and I know this because I've been intercepting their communications. So if you steal it for me, then I'll guarantee you your freedom. So they do, and they get the missile, and the Master tries to bargain with it, and is going to launch it at London, and UNIT tries to take back the prison, and the Brigadier does this by impersonating a workman, and and then Mike Yates gets back to HQ and escapes the Master, and finally
2 minutes 30.
The Doctor offers the Master's dematerialization circuit from his TARDIS in exchange for the missile, but there's also shenanigans on the landing pad with the missile, and the Doctor takes off in a helicopter, and the Master kills Barnum and escapes in the confusion back to his TARDIS, and he has dematerialization circuit so that he can go on, and the Doctor is still stuck on Earth with Joe and the Brigadier, but the Brigadier gives him a nice smile to signal that they're still friends even after all of this.
And time. Wow, right on the money.
Wow,
nicely done.
I must have missed something.
Some meandering.
Oh god, you know what I missed is the damn Keller machine. I missed the Keller. Like I just
barely mentioned it.
I abandoned the Keller machine, and I said it killed the governor. Does it kill the governor? Like I'm so
I
far
honestly
back.
can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot to mention.
Yes.
Let me just do a TLDW addendum. Is that I forgot to mention that the Keller machine becomes sentient and starts moving around the prison and appearing and disappearing. And it even affects the Master, and the Doctor has to tie a rope around it of electricity. And the Doctor sees his scary things are a planet on fire, which is supposed to reference Inferno, and just everything from a Zabi to a Dalek to a Cyberman to did you notice Quillian from The Rescue?
I did.
Yeah.
I saw Quillian. There was an Ice Warrior there, and I think the last one too.
Super old school.
Attack of the Keller machine. Yep.
Yeah.
It was funny as you were doing the plot summary, I was briefly tempted to start sort of trying to do the music from the episode because it's just so intrusive the whole time.
It's so intrusive.
Dun, 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 dun,
yes. The Pertwee era, ladies and gentlemen, when they really want you to know that they bought a synthesizer.
I mean, it's kind of fun. I mean, this is the thing. It's the thing about this. Okay, so my broad take on the Mind of Evil is like, this is it. This is 70s Jon Pertwee Doctor Who. This is the era, and this is a sort of a textbook example of what everyone is nostalgic about, which is UNIT doing their stuff at their prime, doing things that you would probably think the regular army should be doing but for some reason UNIT's doing it, and the Doctor helping them out, and all being James Bondy with things that are like missiles, and the Master's around, and there's sci-fi aspects to it, like the machine that can suck emotions out. I don't know. We'll get to the Keller machine and the inconsistencies there at some point. But this is kind of it. So yes, I mean, the story meanders like crazy. There's way too much going on. It's probably 2 to 3 episodes too long. Yeah, but I can't hate on it too much because it's like, this is fun 70s Doctor Who at its peak.
It is. I mean, I kind of did hate on it too much while watching it. I was like, oh God, when is this thing going to be open? I mean, first of all, I will say that I sat up any time Roger Delgado was on the screen. And that's despite the fact that the Master is not really treated well in this. He has a few really good scenes, not enough good stuff with the Doctor. Like, they really later on leaned into his back and forth with the Doctor. It is nice that right up front they have them working on the same side at least once in this story to control.
Well, that was a great
machine.
scene. Yeah, that was a really neat little twist. I watched this with my daughter. My son was a little more interested in watching the Brooklyn Nets games this weekend, so he sat this one out.
Yeah,
but,
fair enough.
My daughter, when she saw that scene where the Master basically enlists the Doctor's help in controlling the Keller machine, she's like, he's acting like a companion.
Yes,
it was a very kind of astute observation, because the Master's like, so what do I do here? Okay, I'm going to do this. Okay, sure, and you're going to go to that. Like, they're kind of like hanging out together for a brief bit, and there's still those good sort of lead-in scenes where the Master's appealing to him as like, we're both Time Lords, and then the stuff later on where they're haggling over the dematerialization circuit. But I like that they kind of call a bit of a timeout on their rivalry for a bit to deal with this machine, which was kind of cool.
They enjoy their rivalry, that much is clear. It's the Master at this stage is too much of a cigar chomping villain. There are definitely some literally chomping on a cigar.
Two scenes at least where he's just got that stogie and he's just like, all right. I mean, it's fun for Delgado, but it's a little
and he has a car and driver. He has a chauffeur,
right?
Which is another weird note. Like, screw this traveling by TARDIS business. I'm traveling in style, baby. And he gets a hip 70s guy to be a chauffeur in his limo. And it's sort of never quite explained. But also he likes dressing up as common people. Which I feel a lot better for thinking that Pigbin Josh, when we see him at the start of the Clause of Access, was the Master, because he looks so much like the Master's disguise in this.
Yeah, he's got that mask, which isn't terrible. I mean, you're not supposed to notice, maintenance people like that. They're just kind of just putting in the phone tap so he can listen to Captain Yates's plans later.
Exactly, and it would have been so easy and so British to just sort of hide in plain sight as a phone operator, maybe with it like a flat cap on. No one's going to pay attention to you in class conscious Britain.
Well, he kind of does, because there's a bit there where he goes in the tent, the red and white tent, and he takes off his disguise and he just kind of walks out. And it's like, well, wait a minute, weren't you just in front of Unit HQ? You're walking out without the mask now? Like,
you know what? Having said that they don't really have the Master figured out yet here, actually, this is classic Master behavior, because didn't he do that in Mark of the Rani as well? Like, he's just abandoning his disguise as soon as he sees the Rani. He's like, oh, it's me! Did you miss me? And then he also, like, this is why it's like one of the few dud notes in Legopolis when we went to that. We talked about the weird fact that it's a cliffhanger where the Master and the Doctor shake hands and agree to work together for the good of the universe. Like, that was not the first time that has happened by any stretch of the imagination. They always have a moment of like, I guess we're fighting on the same side now.
Yeah. I guess because the stakes were so high in that one, it's supposed to be more dramatic.
But I think one thing that they might have changed about this, if it was later era Master, is as great as that scene is, where we see that the Master is affected by the Keller machine and what he sees is the Doctor. And it's a great scene because the Doctor is huge, towering above him. Great use of, just camera overlay, special effects. Really sticks in the brain. But I don't think that is accurate. Like, the Master isn't really scared of the Doctor.
Right. Agreed.
He actually loves the Doctor.
Exactly. And I think it's a sort of a misread. I don't necessarily think it's a misread on the Master, his motivation so much, in that he wants to show he's smarter and better than the Doctor. And his feelings toward him are kind of warped. And to your point, I think in a very real way, it's love. It's this deep attachment. I think what the problem here is that the Keller machine itself and what it does and what it's trying to tap into people is all over the map. I mean, it's just probably the most inconsistent monster in Doctor Who in terms of its ability and even motivation or whatever. Like, it just makes no freaking sense.
The Keller machine definitely had too many fathers. So Don Houghton, the writer. I am pronouncing his name right, Houghton.
I think so.
He wrote Inferno. So obviously he can write some good stuff. Didn't like the title The Mind of Evil. I think it was the Pandora box that he wanted to call this originally. Hated that it was changed on him by Barry Letts. But he was inspired by Clockwork Orange.
Yeah,
right?
you can see that
whole notion. Yeah, it's a very clear Clockwork Orange reference. It's also, by the way, the closest Doctor Who gets to the notion of capital punishment. In that scene at the start where all of the bigwigs file in to watch this demonstration of the Keller machine. And the Doctor actually has a line where he sarcastically implies that capital punishment is not a good idea, which still controversial in 70s Britain. You know, we'd had capital punishment, I think the last execution was in the 60s, so it was still fresh. And you still had a majority of Britons believing that we should have capital punishment. So it's still in the news. So to have the Doctor come out against it is very interesting. Anyway, you ever seen? It's almost like you're going to watch the character die. God, what was his name again? Barnum. Yeah, thank you, Barnum, the gentle giant of the story, Barnum, who just sort of sits there. Well, because that's the weird thing is that it works on Barnum. It works. Exactly. That's like. It sort of undermines the whole premise that this is wrong and this is bad, because it actually turns Barnum into kind of a good guy, even if he's kind of lost most of his mind or something. It's weird. Well,
it is weird, and I think that if they tried, there's almost some decent philosophical points they're making here, which is that Barnum's evil impulses are removed, so he becomes kind of a simpleton.
Yes.
And what that says, I think there's a subtle point there about like what that says about evil and innocence, and that you can't have a smart, pure good person, right? Like you need to be able to turn on a little bit of darkness to really sort of almost get anything done or have any kind of advanced thought, which I think is may or may not be true, but it's an interesting sort of point to make. And I wish they'd sort of gone a little further there. It's a little almost like the original Star Trek almost made this point to some extent, or did kind of make this point in The Enemy Within, where Captain Kirk gets split into good and evil, and neither one can fully function, you know. And I think there's sort of a similar point almost being made here, but it never really goes anywhere with it.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You've reminded me, by saying Star Trek, you reminded me of Spock's brain, whereas the moment where McCoy becomes super intelligent for a moment, where he's trying to fix Spock's brain at the end of it. And, you know, that reminds me of Flowers from Algernon. Have you read that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
which is where I thought we were going with Barnum, you know?
Yeah.
At least he has the recovery from it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, the other point I think they're almost making with the Keller machine is has to do with the effect of the Keller machine, which is that it's killing the minds of its victims, or killing by convincing them in their minds that they're about to die from the thing that they fear most. But it's also that another thing they sort of say is that it's drawn to evil, you know, so that's why it sort of runs away from the Doctor and goes after the other guy. I forget his name, Mailer, I think it is.
Right.
And so it's drawn to evil. It wants these evil impulses. This is almost saying there's and I think this is actually probably the better philosophical point, that there's evil and fear go hand in hand. That basically the most evil people are also the people who are the most scared. And that's I like that point. Yeah. You know, and that there's and you know, you kind of can even see that in echoes of the Master, not just in this episode, but throughout, this insecurity you have when you're evil and you just need to sort of prove something. So I kind of like that. This is sort of like me a little bit trying to fix the Keller machine and as a monster in my mind, and it's more interesting if I think of it this way, because it does thinking about it this way does a decent job of writing away at least some of the inconsistencies. Because if you think about it's you know, Barnum gets his evil impulses taken out of him, but then it's the creature, I guess it's a creature in there, seems to start forgetting about that and just starts killing people.
Yeah.
Presumably by making them scared, although the special effects later don't really imply that. They sort of also forget about the showing fears, and I wish they hadn't. Even though, sure, he's killing nameless, faceless prisoners, but everyone's scared of something. I think it would have been more fun, certainly, and more interesting,
more
even if they are just
sure.
these throwaway, like someone's scared of being killed by a car, show a car hitting them or something, or whatever, like, getting hit by an arrow. I don't know. That everyone's scared of weird things. A lightning, that'd be a good one.
I mean, I can see why they wouldn't do that, which is that this particular story went so over budget that the director was actually never hired again. The budget part of it went on getting that helicopter that's right at the end. To spirit the Doctor and Joe away from the size of the missile. Which, by the way, does the missile explode at the end? I'm not entirely clear on that.
I don't think so. No. Oh wait, yeah, it does. They blow it up, right?
But we don't.
Something,
but like it's a controlled
up.
explosion, so it's not a nuclear explosion. I'm presuming, and they dealt with the nerve gas in there. I mean, this is a freaking dangerous missile, and they're going to drop it in the ocean. I mean, that's the other thing about this. That is like, what? Like, UNIT was supposed to dispose of this in the sea. This nerve gas nuclear weapon. What the hell? Maybe the International Peace Conference should have dealt with that.
Well, I mean, it's happening at the exact same time, which is this thing. Like, it's like you're imagining the Brigadier just with phones all around his face, like J. Jonah Jameson in this old Spider-Man cartoon.
Yes,
we have the peace conference, and there's a nuclear mission, plus the Master's loose, and like, oh my God, someone burnt the souffle.
Hey, you're getting a bit ahead to the Clara Splinter there, but it's so what's interesting. So in 1971, as this was being screened, a bunch of countries ratified something called the Seabed Arms Control Treaty, which prohibited the emplacement of nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction on the seabed and the ocean floor and in the subsoil thereof. So, UNIT, we're going to have some words. Well, first of all, I think this does show that it's definitely in the 70s, not the 80s.
Totally.
Just clearly before this treaty kicked in. But yeah, like, what the hell? Like, actually, the master's doing good work by not letting them do this.
This is unfortunately, I don't know who did this, whether it was Don Houghton or the script editor. And we're really zeroing in on the missile, but you kind of have to, because
you kind of have to.
It's some of the dumbest writing I've seen. It's just like, well, but it's like, it's nerve gas and it's nuclear powered. They say both, right? And I think people have kind of retreated a little bit and interpreted this to mean it's a nerve gas missile, but they do say it's nuclear. Like, how does that work? It's nuclear powered. So is it a warhead, or is it like a submarine? So it could like circle the Earth 1,000 times if it had to, because the drive is nuclear. I mean, like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just dumb. It's like, let's have the most stakes raised MacGuffin with throwaway dialogue we can do, and it just ends up sounding stupid. But yeah, they're disposing of it here and now while the peace conference is going on. Plus, it's like, I think this is going to affect the fish if you throw it down there. And I actually thought for a second, hey, wait a minute, maybe this is what creates the weed.
Yes, from Fury from the Deep, absolutely. Well, you know what it reminded me of was Battlefield. Another story we've been to with a missile where the threat isn't very clear and exactly how is this going to work? Morgane's going to fire this, and what's going to happen? How is she going to start World War III?
And I got to say, how did UNIT ever get the job to oversee the transport of another missile? After this episode, it's like, okay, like, come on, you guys. You lost another nuke?
Yeah, maybe they actually weren't supposed to dispose of it in the sea, but they're just like, we can't figure out where to take this thing. There's just, dead of night, drop it into the ocean, drop it off a big cliff. No one will know.
UNIT they have the worst maps. They're just, wait a minute. You see like Benton, just like it's upside down, and what's going on? I don't know.
There is that weird scene where the Brigadier says, map, and someone brings him a map, and he's like looking at, oh yes, I think that the convoy. Like, why didn't you have the convoy's route plotted out already? I think the convoy was here. What the hell? What kind of fly-by-night operation is this? And you're running security for an international peace conference at the same time? How did you get double booked?
Well, that's exactly it. He was too busy planning the peace conference and the security for that. He didn't have time for them. He just, he told his boss he could, it'll be no problem. He just told himself he'd figure it out later. If
this was modern Who, there'd be a prequel. Where the Brigadier just accidentally double books himself. And, we just have a lot of close-ups of Nicholas Courtney with his eyebrow raised going, oh, why, yes, Benton, I seem to have double booked myself. That's no problem, is it, Benton? We shall take care of that, won't we, Benton? Yeah, that's my Nicholas Courtney impression. You're welcome.
It's he does a pretty good impression in this one. So Nick Courtney gets to play dress up toward the end.
Yes.
And he the Trojan horse, he even directly references it, and he gets a van full of unit guys, about roughly 8 or 9, while the rest of his army, or I guess battalion or whatever, comes through the catacombs or the secret passage, because it's a castle, so there's got to be a secret passage underneath. And they all come together and shoot a bunch of people, which is kind of fun. So the brig actually adopts a workman's disguise himself, showing the master how it's done, and puts on a working class accent that you can tell, and it's very good actually. It's Nicholas Courtney playing the Brigadier, playing a working class delivery guy, right? It's clearly if he was doing that as an actor, he would have done a better job. But I love that the brig thinks that he can pull this off. Yeah, he gets to say the word nosh. It's nosh.
Yeah, it's nosh. And a few bottles of booze for your governor.
Yeah, he gets them with the booze. It's like, you're a prisoner. You're like a criminal. You're into booze, right?
Yeah.
That'll get you. By the way, these prisoners are some of the best dressed I've ever seen. Like, everyone gets a tie. They're basically like a band. They all have uniforms.
A band on the run. This was 70s era wings.
And the guy at the end, honestly, he was more convincing than the guy at the beginning who's guarding the front door. They could have been the same guy. Like, it's like that guy probably used to be a cop before he, did something bad and is now on the wrong side of the law. So,
I have so many directions we can go in here. But first, I want to note, you noticed the prisoners' costumes. Did you know the costume designer on this story got arrested and taken to prison during the production of the story?
It was a premonition. This story, that's crazy.
Yeah, they discovered that he'd stolen from his previous employers, which was some well-regarded Fortnum and Mason kind pirates type company. So I guess they, it was that old school thing. Oh, he worked for there. He must be a good chap, But no, turns out he was a thief. He ended up in prison. Yep. They had to visit him in prison to find out where the costumes were. They're doing some actual research for Stagmore Prison, which they wanted to film it in the prison. They couldn't do it. Right. It's a bit weird. It's like the only time Doctor Who's really explored an Earth prison. Obviously, we've had lots of space prisons. There's a connection with Revolution of the Daleks. We get to see these sort of, these Cockney louts in this prison, and they're all like, you're not trying to pull a fast one on me, are you? And they're all so easily knocked out and hit over the head with a tray, or they're just kind of cartoon prisoner villains. It's so bizarre.
They are, but there's like so much killing in this one. I gotta say, like, the body count is very high. So it seems like there are 3 big groups that get like slaughtered. Right, one is like when the prisoners take over the prison. It feels like they kill all the guards and everyone, and because you never see them again. So I'm just assuming they did. And then when they go to capture the missile, all those unit guys get slaughtered. They all get just shot and killed, and only Benton and Yates survive, it seems like.
Conveniently.
So a whole bunch of unit guys get totally killed. And then when UNIT storms the prison, like, this is the most graphic stuff. Like, all the unit soldiers are full-on soldiers, just blowing people away left and right. So it's like, okay,
And there were also some mercenaries. The Master has hired some mercenaries in army costumes, which is because they didn't. There was some miscommunication. They accidentally had guys in army costumes in that scene fighting on the Master's side. Like it was a total mess. It seems, the costumes. So they had to write in that line. Yeah.
Yeah, I barely followed that, so I guess I didn't understand what they were trying to say. But it's like it was such a confused story that meanders. It just didn't even matter. Like everything was whizzing by me at that point anyway.
And there's a bit where Mikey Yates sort of drives off on a motorbike, but then he hits this pile of like pallets or something. You know, he like just this really weird stage scene. It looks like where he just sort of drives the motorbike into a bunch of pallets. That was an accident. That was just, it was supposed to cut to stuntman driving off on bike, but they kind of liked that scene, Richard Franklin himself doing that, and it was totally accidental that he ran into that big pile of wood. They were like, no, keep it. Let's keep it in. That's how Yates fell off his bike. That's fine.
That's how they rolled in the 70s.
Exactly.
But really, like, this episode, as we said it before, but you could really subtract 2 entire episodes, maybe 3 even, and still have the story, you know, and probably a better, tighter story. So here's what I think could go. Like, I think a lot of sort of the build up to the Master, like that stuff with Kettering, which isn't quite a mislead, but it's like, it's a sort of a needlessly slow rolling the Master involvement and reveal, which happens, I believe, in episode 2. And again, we'd already talked about it, but it's one of the worst Master reveals, certainly. It's just kind of like he goes into a tent and takes off the mask. So you could get rid of that. You could most definitely get rid of, I would say, probably episodes 3 to 5. You could excise 2 episodes worth of stuff out of there in terms of like the prisoners and Joe and the Doctor and all this back and forth with the Master and getting stuff. And it's so long, you start to wonder, like, why hasn't anyone taken back the prison at this point? Like, why isn't this national news? You know, like,
exactly.
Like they're just kind of hanging out in this prison that they've taken over. Like, surely someone's noticed by now because it's been seemingly forever.
It's because the Brigadier has casually slapped a D notice on it. I don't know if you caught that reference.
Yeah.
But
I did catch that.
D notices it was actually controversial at the time. Around about this time, news of a robbery was denoticed. And it turned out to be because there was a member of the royal family would be embarrassed by, I don't know, by things that had been stolen, or like it was a shady story. I don't think we ever got the full story, but it was totally a misuse of the D notice, which is a real thing in British politics. Okay. So to see the Brigadier be so casually, you know, anti-press, anti-free press, that hasn't aged well. But
aged well, but it's in keeping with, I think, what we know the Brigadier to be. He's very efficient. He'll kind of do whatever it takes to win for seemingly Queen and Country or the United Nations, depending on the episode. This one seems a little confused about that, right? Because they're doing security for a peace conference, which does sound a little bit like something UNIT would do. But the disposal of the Thunderbolt is very much, seems like it's a British thing. Because this is like a British missile that they don't want anyone to know about. So they're being super secret about it. But isn't sort of the Brigadier duty bound to the United Nations here? Like, why would you entrust UNIT to this?
It is weird, and I think part of it is because they did get a missile from the RAF. That is an actual missile. That's not a prop. They got something from the RAF. I think that Barry Letts talked the RAF into helping out by saying that they got the army involved in the previous season. I don't remember when that was. That the RAF was like, "Oh, well, we've got to appear on Doctor Who too in some way, right?" But yeah, so I think they just sort of wrote it in, didn't think about it. But yeah, absolutely, that should have been the Air Force's job to dispose of that. And maybe if you're going to drop it into the ocean in absolute violation of this ocean bed treaty, do it somewhere else. I'd put it in a plane and drop it. You know, go South Atlantic.
Canada, guys.
Exactly.
Under the ice. No one will find it until global warming centuries later. But
exactly. That's why Canada is so small in Dinosaurs in a Spaceship. They found the missile. No, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we've harped on the problems. Yeah, it's definitely too long. There are definitely too many scenes with Dr. Summers. Love you, Michael Sheard. Definite friend of Doctor Who, appeared in many episodes, but it's not a good character here. He spends so long in that cell with Joe.
Jack stayed for the first episode, and he thought that doctor was actually kind of competent, which I think it's a little bit refreshing to see, just because often you see the doctor either competed with or sort of dismissed, or there's some incompetent person maybe kind of seemingly working against him. But this guy was like, oh, he's actually good at his job, and sort of trying to help them out. But again, so long, he might even have 2 or 3 incidents where he's insisting on protecting Joe, which, again, I like the instinct. It's so repetitive. It's just like, okay, either what you're kind of almost waiting for this guy's like great scene, and he never quite gets it. But I gotta say, like, I don't know if this was subtle at all, because if it's so subtle, I think everyone missed it, including the adults. But the fact that Joe, as a woman, is now a prisoner of all these, bad prisoner types in a prison, like, you do in an adult situation that's extremely like that could go extremely dark extremely quickly. So I do like his instinct to protect her. So more points there. So again, I like the guy. Never gets a great scene.
Yeah, he really doesn't. It's unfortunate. And then when our doctor gets taken to the same cell, a little later on, it's like, oh God, we're back here again. The only good thing about that cell is the game of checkers that Joe and the doctor are playing in it, in which Joe kicks the doctor's ass. And the doctor's like, well, the problem is it's too simple a game. I prefer 3-dimensional chess, which isn't that just chess?
Yeah.
Isn't chess 3-dimensional?
I mean,
you're supposed to say 5-dimensional chess. The
gameplay isn't, but I take your point. No, but it's such a Pertwee line. He's arrogant. This is the thing. This is a great line. Something Liam and Rob observed when we were doing Waters of Mars and talking about the arrogance of various doctors, and they all have it to some extent, some more than others and in different ways. Pertwee is definitely one of the more arrogant doctors, and it's charming. He's fun, and he's he wins you over, but he's never going to not remind you he's the smartest guy in the room.
Yes.
So it's all right.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's all right, but it's his character.
But we should, I wanted to give The Mind of Evil props. I'll give it props for a couple of things. First of all, that I'm still thinking about it, a couple of days after viewing the whole thing. Like, it's churning in my head. It's definitely, it has an afterlife in your brain, which a lot of the best Doctor Who does. But I also give it props for being enlightened in the early 70s, in a time that was not necessarily very enlightened about how you play race on television, in that it had all of these Chinese delegates. It could have gone very wrong. Instead, you have Captain Chin Lee, who is Captain Chin Lee, who is is played by Pik Sen Lim, who's actually the wife of Don Houghton. And so she, yes,
should have known that.
Yeah, so she's the writer's wife plays the Chinese captain in this. And okay, there is one moment that is just so, it falls so flat and sounds such a bad note that I'm just going to say that it's just, we can easily retcon it. But where Mike Yates says, as Captain Chinley walks out, that she's quite a dolly. First of all, I think Don Houghton should have run on set at that point and punched him in the face. Secondly, I think that that was, a lot of people have pointed out, like, is Mike Yates later on turned out to be, in Big Finish, it turns out he's gay, right? Isn't that now canon?
I think it's implied. I forget. I think it is. I remember we talked about this. The only Big Finish I've listened to with Mike Yates is the one with the bugs. I forget what it is. It's the hornet's nest, I think.
Okay. But certainly, like, his on and off romance with Joe is like he's not. He never contemplates that.
Is he gay? Is he bi? I don't know. You might, and maybe he's just appreciating a good-looking woman in the way a early 70s guy would.
But he's
obviously
so
Don
not
Houghton wrote
convincing.
the line. I think,
I guess
maybe
good
that's
point.
it. He wrote the line, and I think given the 70s, like this is kind of what you did. You complimented women, and it was done everywhere, including the workplace, and that went on for well over a decade after this.
I guess
certainly in 2023, you can't. I mean, plus some people think this is not a great development, and that everyone's so scared about complimenting anyone, it just doesn't happen. And it is what it is. It's just the culture. But the culture then was a bit different. But I think your original point about handling race here is a good one, in that like it's they key in on the Chinese delegation at the peace conference, which is kind of a probably, I wouldn't say bold thing to do, but somewhat unusual given the Cold War at the time. Like usually you probably key on the Soviet delegation, but giving the Chinese props for their influence, I think here is a good call. And I would say the character, though, even better, is that she has a good deal of agency. Yes, she's a pawn of the master, but the master clearly is manipulating her, and she's trying to resist. And when she gets out of it, she's ostensibly sort of on the side of the good guys, right? So there's a good little development here, not a lot, but I mean within the range of that character, and it's never really insulting. So good stuff.
It is unfortunate that she turns into a dragon, and it is definitely unfortunate that there is one point where don't they figure out that it's her? She was accompanying the master because someone says, well, a Chinese woman was with Dr. Keller, and they're like, oh, that must have been Captain Chin Li. Oh yeah, or maybe one of the 500 million other Chinese women on the planet might have been.
They're not all in London, though. I mean,
that's true. That is true, and probably less likely in 1971, etc., etc. But still, assumption doesn't sit well today. But
fair.
But it is you definitely get the sense that the that the Westerners here, the Brits here, are kind of shown up to be a little bit behind the times, right? First of all, they're in my case, like casually sexist about, this Chinese captain because she happens to be a lady. But also like the doctor shows up the Brigadier when he meets Fu Peng. This other Chinese character we see, where he's like, no, let's I'm going to speak to him in his own language. And that is Pertwee actually using that dialect of Chinese. He was actually,
doesn't really jibe with everything we've known about the Doctor, the TARDIS languages, but Doctor, I'll forgive it because I hadn't really established that yet.
It is apparently it's new Doctor. It's much more resonant with the new series when you get the sense that he's traveled much more widely, he speaks many more languages than we know about. It's definitely that style of thing. But also that he's got the culture, and he's a friend of Mao Zedong. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
Yeah,
I feel like that didn't age well. In terms of all this stuff, related stuff,
it's possible that was just a bit too, a bit too like maybe we didn't know everything we now know about Mao. I'm not sure of the timeline on that.
Well, this would have been what, 71? I feel like so. If that's the case, I still doesn't give me that much clue to it. But
it's pre Nixon going to China. That's one thing to note. China is still very much our enemies,
right,
and all that. But yeah, I think it was definitely the era of, as John Lennon puts it in Revolution, like, if you go carrying pictures of Chairman Mao, you ain't going to make it with anyone anyhow. Some fine Beatles wisdom there for us. But yeah, it was clearly that kind of level of like Mao was cool in a way that Che Guevara was cool. He was iconic. And but yeah, I don't think we really knew everything about the Cultural Revolution in '68 at this point and how destructive that had been. So I guess it makes more sense. And there was definitely that romance with communism among the young people in the West. And yeah,
good thing that's all gone. Anyway,
anyway, moving swiftly on from politics.
So if I could get on a quick my tangent here and pivot back to the master quit. It's not a tangent, but this is my master soapbox, and I feel the need to get it out of the way. Okay, so this is another example again of certainly textbook Doctor Who in the 70s, but it's an example of a master episode where he escapes at the end. And I just want to hold it up for a minute or two here as counter evidence to the prevailing theory that somehow the master died died. Everyone says the master died at the end of every classic series episode and just came back. And I feel the need to, whenever there's a master episode, no, incorrect. The master always either escapes or is taken prisoner. He never, ever dies, at least not until, and this is only an implied death, Castrovalva. Someone go ahead, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I am. I'm fairly certain in every single Pertwee episode, it's a clear escape, or he gets like at the end of the Damons, he gets captured, and of course he comes back because they set it up for him to come back. So everyone's got to stop saying the master died at the end of every classic series episode. That didn't happen. And I feel the need for this because, again, clearly this is prevailing wisdom, because I don't know if Chibnall said it directly, but he clearly brought back the master after having died again, right? Like the master does die a number of times in the new series, of course, as we all know. But the people use this trope that somehow he died a lot in the classic series as like, oh, we can just bring him back because that's what fans expect. No, work at it. And if you don't want to work at it, don't want to set yourself in the trap of like, I have to bring him back after he died, just do what they did in the classic series and don't kill him.
Yep.
All right. It's done.
Yeah. It would be nice to go back to that for the next master. I absolutely agree. Good rant. No notes.
There was one note. I only referred to it once.
I will say, okay, so here's my final thought on The Mind of Evil, and then I think we should move on to the 4 questions. I am sitting here realizing that it is actually a smarter story than I didn't enjoy watching it, right? But now I'm sitting here thinking about it. I'm realizing how much of this story is about intelligence and different kinds of intelligence and how they function in the modern world. Everything from this question of Barnum and his level of intelligence, and like, is evil only in the minds of intelligent people? That's an interesting point that the story didn't explore, but perhaps set us up to think about afterwards. Intelligence in the sense that, UNIT is the United Nations Intelligence Task Force. They are doing a lot more intelligence work here. The Brigadier's bullheaded intelligence versus the Doctor's more cunning, sort of culturally aware intelligence that definitely comes into play when talking to the Chinese delegation. And the intelligence of Joe in beating the Doctor with checkers, like, sometimes the thing can be too simple. You can overwhelm the greater intelligence. And so, and of course the master himself, this question of, what is he? He's obviously some sort of super intelligent entity. And my God, does Delgado ever knock it out of the park in every scene that he's in? He presents himself as almost the epitome of urbane intelligence, So yeah, it's very interesting. I'm liking it more the further I get away from it. Obviously it has problems. Obviously it's no Inferno. And I think we're gonna probably not give this one a Viscount Bang. We'll see shortly, but still, I do want to say that I'm glad we went there. I'm glad we watched it.
Thinking.
I'll also say I kind of want to see it now in the black and white version. There's a lot of people saying this is one of the Pertwees that was colorized because they only had the black and white broadcast. I wonder if black and white might be more effective for this kind of story.
Well, I got to say, I was very pleased to see it in color. We didn't touch on this, but yes, because I grew when I was growing up, and I saw this once or twice when they were running Pertwee's. It was always in black and white, and I was very pleasantly surprised when I popped in the DVD, and it's like, oh yeah, it's color. I think I'd heard about it being color, but it didn't really like have the moment where it's like, oh, cool, like all this stuff I've seen in black and white once, I can now see in color. I didn't realize it was actually colorized. I think. I could be wrong about this. I think obviously it was originally shot in color.
Yeah.
But one of the episodes, I think only one of them survived in color. And then they said, well, why don't we just use that as the basis and colorize everything else? And
it was something like that. It was
color.
The black and white transmission was recovered, and it had the color information interlaced into it in some very technical ways. So, yeah, some Magpie Electronics stuff going on there behind the scenes. Anyway,
totally.
When
you were talking about intelligence there for a bit, I think you might have touched on it, but the creature as well, is apparently intelligent. So that's kind of an interesting thing, and I always sort of thought, and we'll get into this in the evil plot succeeding. It's a shame you don't quite get into its motivations and what it wants. It never really has a voice. Are we led to believe that the Master picked up this intelligence on some other planet and like disguised it as the Keller machine, that it was always in there? Or is it a creature that is spontaneously forming from evil thoughts? I think I prefer the second one. It's never clear. Like I'll tell you, I originally thought it was the first one, but it doesn't quite work unless he's got it lying around in his TARDIS, because it's very well established at the end of Terror of the Autons he can't go anywhere anymore. The Doctor has his dematerialization circuit. By the way, kind of a weird reversal to suddenly just kind of give it back to him at the end of this one. Yeah, but I do like that they sort of agonize over it, because he sort of casually says, oh, I'll give it to you. And then he's like, oh, no, I can't really give it to him, because then he's got the whole cosmos. But then he gets it. And so he has the whole cosmos.
And then he thoughtfully calls him up afterwards from a room we presume to be on his TARDIS, just to say thank you. And also really rubs it in about the Doctor still being in exile.
Yeah. And I think what they were trying to do here, just knowing they probably knew the arc of their season, and they wanted to do Colony in Space 1 or 2 episodes later. So they were like, well, we need him to get it back, because we can't just be on Earth the whole time. But yeah, I do think, getting back to the Keller machine, that it works better as like these evil thoughts have spontaneously formed a creature. Though I don't know if the script works around that well. The Doctor does refer to it as a creature fairly early on. And but then did the Master just have this thing in his TARDIS somewhere, and just it was on ice and he pulled it out? And how would he not know he can't control it?
Yeah. Why is the Doctor so unusually incurious about this creature? What the hell? We've just come from Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, where he was super excited to find dinosaurs on a spaceship, and here he finds a one-eyed, bug-eyed monster in a vat. But he doesn't have any curiosity, which seems undoctor-like even for the Pertwee Doctor.
Yeah. At least we got to see the monster, I will say. For a minute, I kind of thought, would this count as, remember we talked about Midnight, and it's sort of famously the first Doctor Who episode that doesn't show the monster. Right. And in a sense, this one almost was, but then they kind of show it with the lid off for a minute. And then you kind of see this glob, almost like a Dalek mutant.
I was going to say, it had a bit of a Dalek vibe to it.
Well, even the design of the exterior, right? Yeah. Like, that's why I actually have my little knobby Dalek here in the background. I love it. It's kind of the Keller machine almost.
I could not stop thinking of the machine as a policeman's helmet. It really looked like a British policeman's helmet, like a bobby. On top, it just looked so much like that it really was super weird to me. I don't know why they designed it like that.
Would have worked better with it. And I thought about this after. So it's kind of similar in some ways, at least design-wise, to Nomad from that Star Trek episode, the original Star Trek, where it's this probe.
Another one.
That it's a probe that floats around the inside of the Enterprise and speaks and is a character. but it's super powerful. So it's
that does ring a bell.
This design is very similar. So I don't know if this was a conscious design imitation. And there's also a point where, in this episode that the Keller machine learns to, I guess, teleport itself.
Yes.
And by the way, my daughter loved the Wiggles. She would call it the Wiggles.
Oh, the Wiggles.
Because the screen would go all wiggly. And she's she just thought it was so funny.
It's such a cheap effect, and you never see it on TV anymore. But you used to see it on British TV all the time in the 70s. Like it was in every comedy show. And that's the thing. It has a comedy vibe to it. It's so weird that they use it.
It's like, Garth and Wayne, like, like we're going to Dream World, right?
Yeah. It has not aged well, those parts. Yeah.
I think it might have been more effective and scarier if the machine was literally floating, and moving around, and like it would sort of come around a door, go around a corner through a doorway, and you'd see it floating there, and then you're screwed.
Yeah.
The Wiggle, like it's just kind of comical, like you're trying to do this sort of dark episode with these fears and being exposed and then this thing killing folks, but it's just kind of silly. So not so great with the design there, guys.
Weird shifts in tone. All right, shall we shift our tone to the 4 tones that must play?
Hey, leave the cheesy segues to me, sir. No, let's do it. Let's get a move on to the 4 questions to Doomsday. First question among the questions is, of course, why did the randomizer take us here?
I've been struggling with that one all week because there are so few obvious connections. But I think that, clearly the randomizer wanted to show us something different from dinosaurs in a spaceship. And maybe it is that last thing I said of like the weird and curiosity of the Doctor contrasted with the boyish enthusiasm for finding new creatures. Of the Matt Smith era. Definitely prefer the Matt Smith version to the Pertwee version. I think it may be the way that the Master is treated is interesting, the way that UNIT is treated, the way that it goes so real world and topical in this, possibly more so than any time anywhere else in Doctor Who history. And maybe it's the UNIT thing. Maybe you are correct and we are going to get a UNIT spin-off. And the randomizer, which has already taken us to, what we need to see for the 60th, is taking us for what we need to see in spin-offs, and it knows already. Yeah. It knows.
By the way, we were talking about the spin-offs before the podcast. We do our TikTok lives every week, which I think we forgot to mention. But we were talking about spin-offs in Doctor Who. We think we might see a UNIT spin-off.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what the randomizer's really excited about.
Yeah, maybe it is.
I thought about like dinosaurs on a spaceship, and I thought about the most basic connection with this episode, and that they both feature missiles.
Yes,
and the randomizer just like shooting missiles at things.
Missiles
also like
being misused by the good guys as well as the bad ones. Yeah,
exactly. And the Doctor hates missiles in both the 3rd Doctor and the 11th Doctor, but they're both not opposed to leveraging them. To see that the bad guys get what they deserve. And in Dinosaurs in a Spaceship, it's obviously Solomon. In this one, mostly the Keller machine, which is it seems to be blown up. And even though the Doctor says earlier that at some point you need like the force of a star or something to destroy. Like, I don't know. He says something along the lines like to destroy the Keller machine would take something huge. And I didn't think a mere missile, certainly not one with nerve gas.
Well, there we have it. Both 3 and 11 like it when things go boom.
Here's the proof. All right. Moving on to the second question. What if the evil plot had succeeded?
Okay, so we're taking it as read that the evil plot is the Master's and not UNIT's evil plot to dump deadly weaponry into the ocean.
I think we could do that, yeah.
If the Master had succeeded, then would he... I'm also not clear on how the Master thinks that firing a missile at a peace conference is going to start World War III. Because, again, we talked about this in Battlefield. You'd be able to tell what trajectory the missile came in from.
Right.
And if it's coming in clearly from the UK's own land, no one's going to mistake that for, like, you know, and it would be the British government would obviously hear from UNIT and learn from UNIT what had happened. And it actually might have the opposite effect, right?
Yeah.
Of bringing the nations of the world together, you know, kind of a Watchman kind of thing, where the Master is actually, you know, the equivalent of the creature that appears in New York and dies immediately. So everyone thinks there's an alien menace, so they don't launch World War III.
Right.
So the Master...
And then they do international manhunt for the Master.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get his dematerialization circuit back.
Exactly.
He's tried and executed at The Hague or something.
Yeah, I mean, in that respect, the Master's evil plot did succeed because he got his TARDIS back together.
That's true.
You know, it's hard to say. So, yeah, if he did fire the missile at London, which I guess that's a version of it succeeding, a lot of deaths and a lot of global sympathy and outrage and hastening the approach of a world war.
Depending on how destructive it is. I mean, I guess if it's just conventional ordnance and nerve gas, it's not going to destroy the whole city. It may be a city block and probably, you know, a lot more dead because of the spreading of the nerve gas. But you don't have a wasteland in the same, like, in other words, you know, you could still have the new series in London be kind of a wounded London, but it would be generally okay. I think you're right. I don't think the Master's evil plot can succeed, and you just assume there's nuclear exchange and the world becomes a barren wasteland. The other evil plot, might be the Keller machines. Yeah. So it seems to like want to kill and eat essentially the fear of humans, and but he gets sated at some point. You know, there's a point where things slow down, and the Keller machine is just kind of apparently digesting its food. And
with all that teleporting around, I mean, he must, you know, someone should have told the Keller machine's mother should have told him not to run around for half an hour after it's eaten so many people's minds. Just like,
dude,
chill.
Yep. Take it easy. Just roll around on the ground for a bit. But
yeah, so we've got to figure out like, how fast is it eating? You know, what is the rate of consumption here? And can we sort of, how far can it teleport? Like, we need information like that. Because either it could kill everyone on the planet, or it's like you keep it in a zoo and you throw it 3 or 4 prisoners a day. You know?
Right. There you go. So this is the thing, but it's apparently intelligent. The Doctor says it is. So is it intelligent enough to want to conquer the world, or at least parts of it, and do something like it's kind of dumb, right? Like, it seems like it's a child at this point, which I think lends credence to your theory that it's sort of just formed intelligence, because it's just killing everyone. You know, the Master's clearly evil, but kind of wants to work with it, but it's still it's basically killing anyone it's near. So it's very almost animal-like.
Isn't it leaking something that looks like vomit at one point?
Oh yeah, well that's at the end. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's so random. It's like someone threw an egg on it, and they just had to go with it. You know, it's like, okay.
Maybe that is the result of teleporting too fast after eating too much, young man.
Interesting. So, but I think what they were trying to do there, you know, assuming it wasn't just a total accident, was that they were trying to signal it was sort of breaking down or something and oozing out something. I don't know. They never explained it. It seems like there was a cutscene.
The Doctor is much more interested in getting out in a helicopter and making sure his cloak is inside the helicopter door before he takes off, than in anything to do with this creature. That, like, I mean, did a genocide just take place when that missile blew up?
Maybe. Well, that's the other thing. Like, if it isn't a newly formed intelligence and there's a race of these creatures somewhere, I wouldn't mind seeing like a sequel to this episode that actually explores that. These sort of weird brain mutants that absorb emotions, turn people into simpletons, and or kill them. All that would, you know, you could do some interesting stuff with that. But you never really get much intelligence from this creature, so it's hard to know. Like, if its evil plot succeeds, does it just basically get fed for a while and conquer a small portion of its of the world, and you know, gets people might even worship it. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a weird thing about evil and the the emotions of folks and how it affects them, I can see the cult of the Keller machine becoming a thing.
Here, yes, soon may the Kellerman come. Yes, well, so it is. The Keller machine is certainly not a great intelligence, but someone who did battle the great intelligence was Clara Oswald. When she stepped into the Doctor's timeline and fragmented herself, which is why the third question is...
Where is the Clara Splinter?
Where is she?
I didn't have a lot here. It was tough. There's a lot of places she could be, but like I say, I don't like solutions to the Clara Splinter where she's actually working with the bad guys or furthering their side of things. Right. So my thought is that it's a weird coincidence that the Thunderbolt missile is in need of disposal right when there's this peace conference going on. So my thought, maybe she's a part of the British government. She's on some intelligence committee and is a troublemaker essentially, and has said, look, we've got to dispose of this missile right now.
Right.
And it just basically goads them into doing it and hiring UNIT to do it for them. So that's my thought.
Yeah. Make sure you hire UNIT because we really want to test them. See if they, first of all, if they'll book us the same week that they have a peace conference, the first World Peace Conference, lest we, underplay the importance of this thing. Because the missile does need to be there at the end, I guess, to blow up the Keller machine. So that could be her doing, right, to kind of manipulate that. And also to pay Mike Yates back for his comments about Captain Chin-Lee. Get him beaten up a bit in the process of stealing the missile. Right. That works. I like that. I've got no other notes. So she's in the RAF and she's like, kind of talking to her opposite number at UNIT, and she's like, "Oh, I bet you guys couldn't handle this as well." Like, "Oh, you've got a peace conference? You think that's hard? I've got to dispose of a missile." And maybe the guy on the other end of the phone is some Mike Yates type who's like, "Oh, don't worry, Dolly. We can take care of that for you too. We can take care of it with one hand tied behind our back because we're UNIT, Maybe it's Mike Yates himself. Yeah. See our maps, intelligence use.
Amazing maps. You got to see them.
Come back to my map room. I'll show you my missile.
Yeah,
hey,
love a cuppa. All right.
Wow.
There she is.
There she is. And I'm going to say that it was actually Mike Yates himself that she was flirting with because she knows how easily manipulated he is, even if he doesn't necessarily like the dollies. All right. Moving on.
Moving on to the final question, the only question, the question that matters most for the Mind of Evil, which is what did we think of it? The Pull to Open rating system has 4 ratings, which we went over a little bit earlier. But to remind you, there's the Dalek, which is a good episode of Doctor Who. The Ogron, which is a not so good episode of Doctor Who. The Professor Hater, which is a not so great episode, but at least we learned something, probably about how not to do Doctor Who. And the Viscount Banger, which we reserve for the best of the best episodes of Doctor Who. So, what say you, Chris?
I hate to go for the Professor Hater 2 weeks in a row, and I think that there are definitely some Dalek aspects to it. But now we have a sort of new, we sorted this out in last week's episode that Professor Hater is better than an Ogron because, as you say every time, Pete, at least we learned something. And I think we learned a lot. I think this is Doctor Who taking a risk. I think that's often what a Professor Hater is. It's Doctor Who taking a risk, trying something new, going in a new direction, even if it doesn't work out, even if they've thrown too many pieces of spaghetti at the wall and had that spaghetti form into a creature that sucks the evil out of you. It was still worth trying. And I think it was totally worth trying, throwing in all the modern elements that you have here. Right. So, yeah, Professor Hater for me. But again, a shiny, we might almost call him Senator Hater. Like he's tall, he's confident, he walks into a room and gets scared of a dragon. By the way, good American accent in our Doctor Who American accent watch on that Senator there. He actually did well.
I'm usually a Dalek or Ogron guy, and I originally thought this one was a Dalek, a very confused Dalek. But I think as you were just sort of speaking there, I've kind of revised my rating in my head. I'm going for the hater too on this one, because even though I stand by what I said early on, which is that this is it. This is 100% proof 70s Doctor Who. It's UNIT, Pertwee, James Bond style adventure. The Master's in it. It's not one you're going to really want to come back to. And I think there are other examples with that crew of UNIT era at its prime that you would. This one's a thing. There's more here than you might remember. I think it's mostly dependent on you coming more than halfway. But there's just a lot wrong with it. I mean, it's just kind of,
it's very confused.
There's too much repairs to do. Yeah, it's a confused Dalek. I would have said it was a confused Dalek. Instead, I think it's a pretty dapper looking Professor Hater. So this is an example of how to almost do 70s Doctor Who right, but it doesn't quite do it right.
It's not quite got the Master right, and it's not quite got UNIT right, especially. Yeah. It's definitely how you don't do UNIT. They do not do security for some damn peace conference. That's not UNIT style. They are supernatural investigators. They are X-Files. That's what they do. That's where they're best off. X-Files with a little bit of extra military thrown in.
Yeah, X-Files with bolt action rifles.
Yes. 5 rounds rapid, by the way, would make a great title for the spin-off.
There you go. Boom.
5 rounds rapid. It's just like 5 episodes. It's like
so
5
we've closed
pieces.
The books on the Mind of Evil with a double hater rating.
Yes.
All right. Well, now that we're done, even though our dematerialization circuit is on the fritz, we're somehow going to get it. We're going to transport ourselves somehow to the next adventure.
Yes, we're going to take time capsule. We're going to take one last look at Jon Pertwee out of the corner of our eyes and say, oh, "Sorry that you're trapped on Earth. Here we go off into time and space again." But yes, we have the randomizer. The randomizer is composed of 2 elements, the codex and the executor. The codex is played by the spreadsheet that Pete has up before him. That lists all of the stories we haven't been to. Pete, how many stories have we not been to?
We have not been... Oh, wait, I got to...
You got to update the number.
I've got to update the number in my head. So it is 228.
Wow. Okay, so 228 televisual feasts of Doctor Who remaining to the pull to open mission. And I am using the executor.
There it is.
The other part, random.org.
Random element.
The random element. Sorry, give me that number one more time because I'm plugging it into random.org as we speak.
228.
228. So that is what I plugged in. So random.org uses atmospheric noise to deduce an actual random number, not using an algorithm which just guesses at randomness. Randomness is a particularly weird problem in computing. Just ask your nearest nerd. But that's why we use random.org, and we challenge the randomizer before I choose this random number. And I think I'm going to say, let's certainly get out of the Pertwee era. I kind of want to do Tom Baker. So I'm going to say that, but also maybe just give us a story that does UNIT right.
Okay. That'd be all right.
Which isn't necessarily Pertwee, but...
Yeah. I'm going to say, because the Master reveal here was so underwhelming, I'm not going to restrict the randomizer to just Master reveals. I'm going to just say, give us some kind of epic reveal, whatever it is, some kind of twist, and that, pulls out the rug from under us, and we're just suddenly, whoa, I was not expecting that.
Okay.
Give me something like that.
Epic reveals. Okay. Let's see. If you give me a countdown, we will find out where in time and space we're going next.
Well, it's happening in 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Z.
77. I think we're still in old Who.
The Tom Baker drought is over.
Yes.
We're at Destiny of the Daleks.
What? The one that was missing. The missing. Missing from the codex for so long.
Our scandal that we rarely talk about. But yes, we started out our codex, our original codex was Destiny free.
Yeah. Well, okay. So it's finally taken us there. This is great because Destiny of the Daleks is the first Doctor Who story that I can actually remember sitting down to watch, where I knew what the title of the story was, where I was really in it, and I was terrified of Davros in this. Absolutely terrified when his light blinks on in that cliffhanger. So we'll get there. We'll also have some good time with the Disco Movellans.
Always a good time with the Disco Novellans.
Yeah.
My goodness, it's amazing. I got to say,
have that weird Romana regeneration. Oh wow, I got things to say about that.
Oh, holy cow! I just remembered that for sure. We're very far away from Dalek bingo. We're almost as far away from Davros bingo. This will be, I believe, filling in all of Tom Baker Dalek bingo.
Really?
I believe so.
Really?
We've done
Legopolis,
which is the little cameo.
Done Genesis. Done Genesis.
And I don't know if there's any others besides this one.
Wow.
Maybe there are.
Wow.
Someone let me know.
I think you're right. It was a bit of a Dalek drought.
Anyway, we will revisit the bingo card next week. You can fill in yours with the last little bit here, because I have just done my last cheesy segue to say, hey guys, this is Pull to Open. It's a podcast. If you have not subscribed yet to this podcast, we invite you to do so now in whatever app you're at. Also, please check us out on YouTube at pulltoopen.com/YouTube. Subscribe there. There's also a little bell icon you can click, which will let you get notified every time we have new content on YouTube, and we have it quite often. Excuse me. On the socials, we are at. I'm so excited about YouTube. That's the problem. My body was preventing me from transitioning to talking about TikTok, where we had Pull to Open, constantly uploading videos there. We're having our lives every week before our podcast tapings. So please join us on TikTok. Lots of great conversation. We're on Twitter at Pull to Open 63 and on Instagram at Pull to Open 63. Big shout out to Martin West, who just completed some new music for us, which I believe you are hearing now as I cut the podcast later. I'm not hearing it now myself, but you are, and it's amazing. Thanks, Martin, for the music. And we will see y'all next time for the Destiny of the Daleks.
It is your destiny, and we'll see you then.
Take care, guys.